Hello, my name is Russell Lynch. I want to talk about a heritage discovery with one of my ancestors who lived in London, England. His name is Shirley Nightingale. I found the family on the 1881 census in St. Pancras. Their address is number 1, the Cloisters. This is not a typical address, and I was curious to learn more about where they lived. Let me start with some background. Shirley Nightingale and Tryphena Poulton married in 1866 in London. By 1881, they had 5 living children between the ages of 14 and 4. Here is their census schedule. I discovered that a number of families lived in the Cloisters, but I still wasn't sure what that building was. The census mentioned that the Cloisters was in Gordon Square, so that gave me a clue where to look. Not knowing if the building is still there, I found an old map of London. Gordon Square is north of the British Museum near the University College. I will enlarge this part of the map. So the map helped me see the proximity of other places in London, but I was limited in what I could learn from my home in the United States. A few years ago, my wife and I had the chance to visit London. While there, I decided to see Gordon Square and investigate for myself. I went exploring. It was late at night the first time I went there. I discovered that the building still exists. It is a set of apartments. This is the building in daylight. I learned it was built in the 1850s. It's part of a church complex. And one of the signs on the building reads The Cloisters, Gordon Square. So I knew I was in the right place. Here's one of the street signs for Gordon Square and Gordon Street. The cloister is next to a large church, also built in the 1850s. I doubt the apartments were ever intended to be a monastery, but that's how they were named, and the name's very unique. Here is a Google view of Gordon Square, the church, and the cloisters. I'm glad that so many of the historic buildings still exist in this area. This experience reminded me of how valuable it is to visit on-site places where your ancestors lived whenever you have the opportunity. I couldn't fully appreciate it until traveling there. By traveling in person, I realized why he lived in that area of town. Shirley Nightingale worked for the London and North Western Railway for over 20 years. The railway terminal in London was the Euston Station, and I discovered that Shirley's family, he always lived near the Euston Station so he could easily get to work. So it does not matter whether your family lived in a large metropolis or in a small rural village. Wonderful discoveries await you. Visiting in person allows you to see them in context of their surroundings. You can learn a lot from an on-site visit.